Castlevania, a game that, I gotta tell you guys this, but my brother knew about this game, but he did not want to let me know. But I asked him why, and he said because you're not ready. And I think a reason why is because there's a lot of things in this, like monsters and all that. And it's just a huge game. Let me explain the review. So, let's get to it.
Alright, so just to give you a head start, that the introduction goes with Konami, and then you see this really dark themed introduction. I don't even know what to say because this is just Castlevania 4. This is Super Castlevania 4. And really nice design. Even so that the bats come out of nowhere. Sometimes. But I will have to explain you how the story of the Castlevania series if you're new to this. Basically, the Castlevania series is that the Belmont family is in charge to destroy Dracula. Yes, Dracula. And this is very interesting because they bring a lot of the monsters from what we know and even things that we've never seen. It is a very unique idea and really a brilliant one. As you can see, Dracula was brought back to life by lightning, but it's said that Dracula comes back every 100 years. Yeah, that's something. Even though this game is called Super Castlevania 4, it's actually a remake of the first Castlevania game. Now, I gotta be honest, the music in this game, everything about it, it sounds so familiar, but I don't know where. And of course, being a remake of an original game, you play as Simon Belmont, the first character from the Castlevania series who takes down Dracula. If you take a look at the background, you can see bats coming out of that giant rock skull. Now, usually a lot of 2D games are kinda like, kinda difficult, but somehow Super Castlevania 4 did a good job on everything that I feel like a lot of people would complain, but there's nothing to complain about this game. This music reminds me of those good old days when, like, the 1930s through the 1960s or whatever ended the music that was classical, because this music is so good. And, it's so, I don't know how to say it, but it's really interesting. I love how it's designed in the background. It's so Transylvania. Simon's weapon is a whip, but it's not just any ordinary whip. It's called the Vampire Killer. This whip is passed down through many Belmonts. You start with a regular whip, and then eventually you'll get the Vampire Killer. One cool thing I like about this game, and I cannot believe they actually put this, is that Simon can literally moonwalk. Yes, you thought Michael Jackson was the only one who can do it? Simon Belmont can do the same thing. Another cool thing that Simon can do is that whenever you use the whip, if you hold the button that uses the whip, you can flick it around, and this is where Sheik stole the idea. Good thing they changed her attack in Smash Bros. Simon can also use sub-weapons, of course, be like knives, axe, cross, but the weirdest thing is holy water. Yeah, that's a thing now. But in order to use them, you need to gain a lot of hearts, and hearts is usually in video games it's health, but in Simon it's ammunition, or, points. Even a watch, yes, you can stop time for a short time. You see what I did there? But I will say, this game isn't that easy. As you can see, I lost my sub-weapon. I have to collect the items again, like the Vampire Killer and all that. So yeah, let's keep on going talking about the boss. So here we go. Let's talk about our first boss, which is this skeleton and riding a skeleton horse, I believe. I'm starting to think that it doesn't just bring monsters from movies. I think it also brings things like folklores, mythology monsters and all that. I mean, that's actually pretty cool. I gotta give credit for that. Obviously, that boss is Izzy, but in the end, they check how. Well, they kind of give you more about the points, but it doesn't really matter. What's interesting is that you get to see how far you go to Dracula's castle. And we have a long way to talk about this game. We do. We really do. The controls are really good at this. I mean, usually I play, like I've said, I played a lot of games that involves with delays, but Super Castlevania 4 actually feels the response. It kind of reminds me a lot of Super Mario 64. And also jumping. This is a really very impressive game. It kind of reminds me of Mega Man X, how that one's very similar. Then you got this swamp area. Yeah, the reason why I'm calling it a swamp area is because if you land into that gooey thing, it's technically like a swamp. But, whatever you do not land on the swamp. But it's very difficult because there are some items that you really want to use, but they just fall on the swamp. And sometimes frogs can make you go to the swamp. Yep. I never realized that they actually made clouds move. That's a pretty cool idea on a game. Usually, whenever it comes to clouds, it's just one spot, and then it just doesn't really move. It just stays where it is. But this is very impressive. And here we go. Our next boss is a male Medusa. Yeah, I don't know why, but luckily, this is a very I will have to say that this is kind of funny, but I somehow took him down very easily and just figuring out his patterns. And then he turns into tiny little snakes. Now, I remember that Medusa turned into stone, and that's about it. Or, they chopped Medusa's head. Then you got this area where it's just that somehow the water is making you go forward or backward. Even if you're not moving, it's still gonna make you go forward. Well, it's more like gonna move you. Then I got this item. Supposedly this item makes me invincible, but I didn't realize it until I finished playing the game and took a look at the clips. Yeah, I probably should have just walked past by every single monster. And now it's time to go through one of my favorite levels, the cave. Yes, that's actually what it's called. I don't know why, but oh well, it's just called the cave. Ah, the music of the cave, so relaxing. Kind of like the aquatic ambience from Donkey Kong Country. If you take a look and notice that there's some dripping water. Yeah, this reminds me of the time that I went to a cave in Mexico. Man, the good old times. Then there are these monsters who I just took down but became smaller versions. Kind of reminds me of a cartoon. I never realized, but they made a background, but then there's a further background that is really cool. I have to say, what does Konami have been doing with the Castlevania series? Did you guys ever mention you that Simon can crouch? No? Oh, I forgot to tell you guys about that. One thing I like about this area is the waterfall. Yeah, it doesn't really hurt you or anything like that. It's just pretty cool to take a look at it. Still kind of reminds me of, well, instead of a cave, more like one of those lakes that have those waterfalls. However, once you get to this level, you're going to notice that you're going to be going higher and higher, so you do not want to go down. I'm really surprised that there's a lot of platform, like you have to jump every single time, but the monsters are very interesting. You got these monsters that shoots water, and I've heard that they could throw you way back, so your best is to, watch out for that. And don't forget about boxes. It's always the boxes. The vampire killer can actually grab hooks, so you can actually swing around, which is a pretty cool thing. Just to be fair, be very careful because there are times where the monsters will, or anything, will hit you and then will make you fall to your own death. And of course there's the game over, and when you click continue, it kind of takes you back to the cave. Ah, so relaxing. Our next boss is a two-headed dragon. You know, this kind of reminds me of that one time where Godzilla blew up one of King Ghidorah's heads and became Ghidorah the two-headed dragon. Although it's very impressive that there's a lot of water. Yeah, luckily there's a platform, so we'll be safe as long as the two-headed dragon doesn't shoot at us. You know, this fight also reminds me of that fight from Mega Man 2, that dragon boss when you're inside Wily's castle. However, this boss is very easy to beat and it's very fun. Also, I forgot to mention you that you can use sub-weapons on this. And apparently, each dragon is half a health, so once you take one down, it turns into bones, and yeah, that's actually pretty cool. But the more you continue on the game, the more harder it becomes, meaning that this is where it gets the real difficulty and the very interesting part about it. Also, I noticed that tiny little skull actually watches you. This kind of reminds me of something from the Scooby-Doo series. But what makes it harder is that the platforms will turn around and make you fall down. You better watch out and watch out where you land. Then you got this boss. This boss is a ghost skull, yeah, and it somehow sticks at, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's rocks. Who knows? This is Castlevania. And it was the easiest boss I've ever faced. All I had to do is just attack him in multiple directions. Whoa, what's with the spikes? Is this Friday the 13th? One cool thing is that it has this very interesting 3D effect. Pretty cool for a Castlevania game. I mean, this isn't the first time they ever done that before. This isometric 3D is very interesting. It reminds me of one of those theme parks where like it goes circles and it makes you think like you're going more like you're spinning around. Then you got this part. Now you gotta be very careful since it's going really fast, so your best is to make sure to run really fast. Well, it's more like walking. Here's the crazy thing, I died while in midair. That's weird. But anyways, back to the game. So I'm basically fighting this monster. It's really big, but as the more times you hit it, it gets smaller. Think of it as like making Mario small but taking forever. And you gotta watch out for the blocks. Make sure to dodge those as well. But once you finally take him down, man, he grows and then eventually, poof, he's defeated. Did you guys knew that in the 90s, Nintendo gave a strict rule that you cannot feature religion content, and what did Castlevania did? Bring a lot of religion content, but with also the Bram Stoker novels and the mythologies. And now we're like some sort of mansion. Well, it is of course Dracula's castle, but the music feels like a mansion. This is one of the coolest ways to do this, but since, like I said, you can jump, anywhere you want. You can actually jump on this, I think it's a lantern holding candles. That's pretty something, right? Then you got these floating ladies, but what's weird is there's this glowy thing. If you hit it, it actually stretches it and it kind of disappears, so it's a monster. I don't know why, but for some reason this music sounds like it's trying to make you rush. But there's a lot of monsters around here, so yeah, that's another thing. Then you got this. Now, it's a bunch of coffins. If you can't beat them, whip him. Whip him so hard that they're gonna regret for what they're doing. And then the next boss is kind of crazy, but you have to face a couple. Now, I know what you're thinking. Isn't that a little bit of disrespect? Well, how about them throwing swords and trying to stab you? Let's see how that goes. This is like a ghost. This is the first time you fight a ghost in Castlevania. Well, it's my first time since this is my first Castlevania game I've ever played. Apparently, when I battle these guys, these couple, it was that fast. So I guess I'm really good at, classic games. And now we are in a library. No, this does not have anything related with Harry Potter, Roxas Ruby, or Pure Violets. But if you take a look and notice, some of the books moves by its own. Because it's not Harry Potter.
You're a hero, Belmont.
Then you got these monsters going up and down. I mean, it's not that simple. Oh, wow, he just hit me. Oh, look at that. I landed perfectly. Great, I got killed by knowledge. Ever since I was a kid, I've always find it weird about, writing on a book. But then again, maybe it was just me. Wait a second, those pictures are moving. Wait, could it be possible that Harry Potter was inspired by Castlevania? Or then again, it might have been inspired by something else that had a moving pictures before Castlevania. Then our next boss tries to do the oh yeah of the Kool-Aid Man, but doesn't work, but obviously it's a golden knight. The only way to manage to defeat him is to make sure to dodge his axe, and if it comes out projectiles, jump and then whack him. Like I said, gotta whack him all. Even though I knocked off his helmet, he's still fighting. You could have expected that was already over. I didn't realize that, but he had a sword. And now we're like some sort of dungeon, a creepy dungeon. What has Dracula been doing in here? I should make a joke about Sora being in this dungeon level, but then again, I don't even want to imagine it. Then you got these spike things. It's gonna land on you. I think they're javelins, but you gotta start running. Then you got spikes trying to poke you, but has to go back up and try to hit you. Did I mention crouching? Then we got our next boss, which, okay, this is, I don't know why, but somehow in the game they call him the creature, but it's technically Frankenstein, so yeah, I'm just gonna go by the name Frankenstein. Frankenstein throws potions. At least that was more explainable than Crash Bandicoots. Once you defeat him, he turns into small pieces, and yeah, you already know, red orb. Spooky, spooky ghosts of time. I'm gonna run over. Whoa, step on the gold. I paused the game and I still see those ugly ghosts. That's very interesting because that's actually pretty cool. But if you continue further, you'll see some treasure chests. Jump on them and then it'll close, but then when you move on to the next treasure chest, the gold will come out. It's like a treasure come true. One thing that makes this level hard is that there are some platforms where it will just literally be destroyed. You better hurry fast, so yeah. And trust me, it's best to forget the items when it comes to this level. Then there's this area where the falling platforms are coming, so your best is to try to get to wherever you have to go. And if you make one wrong move, you'll lead to your own doom. And the boss is a ghost bat that fills its body with gold. I don't even know how to explain this. Then there's this time where I died again after being a boss. Great, I had to start all over again. So I usually do this, but I usually hold the weapon, just flick it around so many times. Yeah, let's get the red orb and move along. However, it starts shaking, and then what's this? Apparently, stairs are coming down. Now you get to go up. And well, you look at that. We're almost there. We're finally going to finish this game and reach to Dracula. And we're almost there. But hey, the music sounds like the music from the first Castlevania game when you start the game. Then at this point, you see a bridge, but once you pass through walking the bridge, you'll see that it starts transforming into bats. Yeah. So your best way is, like I said in the golden level, avoid the items. You could try, but at least try to make it and do not get hit. Then you got this area where this is one of the most brutal and most difficult things to do. You have to go all the way to the top and do not, and I repeat, do not screw up on this level, well, this part of the level. Because if you do screw up, you have to start back, but without the vampire killer with the long chain whip. By the way, this music is reminds me of Castlevania 3. I've listened to the music on that game. Then you gotta jump on platforms and be very careful because there are spikes everywhere. Land at a safe spot and you're good to go. And yes, it gets very harder and harder. Okay, so before you face Dracula, you have to face 3 bosses. Yes, you have to fight these 3 in order to reach to Dracula. Well, at least the good thing is that they make you fight one of them in every fight, which is a good thing about that. The first boss is using a lance, but once you give it more damage, it's gonna try to charge at you. The second boss is a gargoyle. Now this gargoyle is flying and always lands, but like the first one, when you reach half of the damage, it starts like being on the ground and start literally, try to make you rage quit. But here we go, the last boss before Dracula, and this is the one that will really want to make you start thinking about if you wanted to quit playing Castlevania. You have to fight the Grim Reaper. Yes, death works for Dracula. I was supposed to make a joke about, making a joke about the Grim Reaper, but we ran out of ideas, and this previous game is starting to get already reaching to its limits. And this fight just gets really crazy. I mean, he's just flying up there. You gotta use the vampire killer. It's no wonder why in the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, Simon killed it with the cross. Then there's this point where he just literally is trying to drag you and make you get hit by his Reaper Scythe. Yeah, it's a good thing I know how to deal with this situation. So after you finally defeat him, a bunch of rocks fall down, making it to progress to the final battle, Dracula. And that music after the fog came around with Dracula's grave will start playing to haunt your skills. You can see that purple lightning are going around this area because this is actually the final battle. It is you, Simon Belmont, versus Dracula, and to finish it up once and for all. Dracula would shoot projectiles and attack you, but he also teleports, so that is your time to find out where he's gonna go and strike at him. However, it is not that easy because there are times where I try blocking an attack and it still hits me. But then Dracula releases this glowy ball. It moves around, but if you hit it, it'll shoot a lot of projectiles, but at least it gives you health. Then Dracula summons fire pillars, but not only that, creepy ugly faces made out of fire as well. Once you weaken him, then Dracula starts summoning out a lot of purple lightning, and then this is where the final battle, while the greatest theme of Simon Belmont's music comes in. And trust me, you really, and I really have to say this, you want to take him down that fast before he kills you. The good thing is that they let you know when they're gonna strike, but as you can see, I finally ended the battle. After defeating him, the sun comes in and somehow it breaks the glass. Weird. And then turns into tiny little bat pieces. Wait a minute. Oh, I remember. Where does this remind me of? It's Fire Emblem. Okay, I have to explain you guys why.
Believe it or not, but this isn't the first time we've ever seen a remake of a game that, had their first game and got a remake. It happened the same thing with Fire Emblem. See, what I feel like that these two games are like have very common things. They're somehow connected, and yeah. So yeah. To be honest, these two games are remakes of their first games. Pretty cool, right? But I guess it's time to wrap it up. So yeah, let me just end it with one more thing to talk about in the game.
Yeah, I really love wiggling the vampire killer around. But anyways, let's grab the orb and yeah, it's finally over. And I gotta say, after playing this game, I really enjoy it. This is amazing. Oh, look at that! It's Simon, and it's Dracula's castle crumbling down to pieces. Wow. This is like one of those old school monster movies. And to be fair, Castlevania is not just a game. It's one of the best games I've ever tried out. I really hope that sometime in the I hope that Castlevania comes back with more games, and I would love to try them out since after beating Super Castlevania 4. And like I said, it has a lot of connection with Fire Emblem, so it's a good game. Castlevania's the best. Both Fire Emblem and Castlevania got their own remakes, so yeah. I mean, there's nothing to talk about anymore.